A character remembers that he hated the cold when he was young. He sits up on an ice rink. He recalls first standing on the ice holding his brother's hand. He thought he had gotten used to it through countless experiences. Another player approaches and asks if he is okay. He replies that of course he is. He puts on his helmet thinking he still absolutely hates the cold. Despite this, he is still standing on the ice. The face-off begins. He is here because this battlefield is burning hot. It burns hotter than anything else. He uses the cold as fuel. He channels pain, suffering, and rage. His opponent channels joy, happiness, and hope. He thinks he can burn it all. The two players collide with great force. He thinks about what he would say about this story. He would say it is about right here, right now. The scene is the 2025 short track junior national team selection. The arena has drawn way more spectators than other competitions. The crowd is here for the prince of junior short track Jo Hyunjun. He is an incredible athlete who wins first place in every competition. He introduces himself as Jo Hyunjun and says he loves the ice. The athletes are now lining up at the starting point. For one skater, the ice is colder than anything else. The racers take their ready positions on the line, but for that same skater it is also hotter than anything else. The race begins and Jo Hyunjun is immediately impacted. The move is fierce and fast enough to send Jo Hyunjun to the ice. The announcer reports a collision and that Jo Hyunjun fell. A coach protests that it was a foul, but the race continues. Jo Hyunjun has fallen behind by a full lap. If the gap reaches 2 laps, he will be eliminated. He thinks about how bigger guys always push him around. As he prepares himself, he thinks that it is okay. He explodes forward, catching up at an insane speed. But a commentator notes that a 1-lap difference is huge. Even if he catches up, he still needs to overtake them. But Jo Hyunjun does not give up and keeps racing. He closes the gap to half a lap. He feels his breath catch and his legs begin to shake. It is almost the finish line, but the question remains if he can catch up. He breathes hard as he pushes forward. He thinks he is freer on the ice than anyone with only 10 meters to go. The racers approach the finish line. The announcer declares Jo Hyunjun has overcome the 1-lap deficit to take first place. Jo Hyunjun thinks he will not lose to anyone on the ice and becomes a 3-time junior national team member. 1 year later in 2026, the short track national team selection begins. Spectators note the large number of buses outside the arena. One of the buses belongs to Hyunsun High. People wonder if the top-ranked school will sweep the competition again. They recall that Jo Hyunjun went to Hyunsun High and expect the entire national team to come from there. Spectators discuss his insane 1-lap comeback last year and wonder how much faster he has gotten. A character looks at the entry list and is shocked to see Jo Hyunjun's name is not on it. A man asks why someone who did not even make the reserves followed them here. The shocked character wonders what they were thinking picking up a kid like that. A character recalls that everything he built as the future of Korean short track collapsed. He thinks that it only took 1 year for it to happen. It began after he won the Triple Crown when his knees hurt so badly he could not compete. Fortunately, it was not an injury, but by the time the pain was gone, his body had changed. His height shot up to 193 cm, and his weight increased from 49 kg to 98 kg. His legs became so stiff he could barely manage a 100-degree split. His height made his center of gravity wobble and slowed him down on the ice. He became trapped in a massive body that nobody could catch up with. A man confronts him asking why he is so sluggish and pathetic. The man says his middle school results were a fluke and tells him to stay quiet. He tells the character to give up because he cannot compete anymore. He says if the character has no skills or money, he should get lost. Another character with red hair grabs the man's collar. The man taunts him asking if he is going to hit him. He says the red-haired character is scared of getting kicked out. The purple-haired character punches the man who wishes he could have expelled him for it. The coach says he will let it slide this time and tells him to listen well. He orders the character to carry all the kids' stuff after the competition if he wants to keep skating. The character agrees. He is then shown carrying a huge pile of bags. The purple-haired character asks the coach what is happening. The coach says there are not enough seats on the bus. The character asks if he is joking. He watches the bus leave and thinks the coach actually left. He curses the coach, wondering why he has been tormented since he enrolled. He realizes he does not have enough money for the bus fare. He calls his dad and lies about needing money to hang out with friends. He tells his dad the coach said he will be fine with more practice. His dad tells him to hang in there and he agrees. He receives money from his dad and thinks hiding the lack of hope is miserable. He thinks about the people who mock him and cheer for him. He feels even more miserable that all he can say is yes. He feels his athletic career has become a puppet life for the coach. He stands outside the arena and thinks about how unfair it all is. He wonders why he must endure this humiliation just for being out of form. He reminds himself he is still Jo Hyunjun and other teams will want him. He recalls the many schools that contacted him and decides to succeed elsewhere. He calls the coach and says he is quitting short track today. He tells the coach to get the luggage himself and hangs up. He declares he is done with Hyunsun High and will transfer to another team. He decides to skate a bit more since the competition is over and there is time before the bus leaves. A man at the ticket counter informs him that the skating rink is unavailable. The character reacts with surprise. He asks why the rink is closed when it is not yet closing time. The man begins to explain. He clarifies that not all competitions are over yet. The character hears a voice introducing Jo Hyunjun and his love for the ice. He sees two ice hockey players facing off on the rink. The play is described as fierce. One player checks the other with great force. A player skates towards the goal. The character thinks about how much he hates ice hockey. He thinks that even if he were to quit short track and do another sport, he would never do ice hockey. He watches the game and sees a vision of an injured person on the ice. He thinks this is because he does not deserve to. At Incheon International Airport, a voice wonders about someone named Ryu Hyunjun. Someone questions why so many reporters have gathered for a player just joining a youth league. They think this level of media attention is more suited for a top soccer player or an idol. A man tells a blonde-haired character he should have studied up and the character apologizes. The man explains their country is known for short track and speed skating, but has no world records in ice hockey. He says it is natural for reporters to show up for the first player from their country to enter the CJL. He clarifies that the CJL is not just a youth league, but can be considered a pro league. The explanation continues that there are about 800 registered youth hockey players in North America. From those players, the top 5-8% compete in the AAA league, and only 600 of those players get a chance at the CJL, which is the dream for the top 0.001% elite. That league is the Canadian Junior Hockey League, or CJL. This player is not just in the league, he is the AAA number 1 and the pinnacle of North American youth hockey. He was the consensus number 1 overall pick. He defeated all prospects and received the first unanimous first pick in the league's 50-year history, earning the name a monster from the East. A player with talent that could write history has appeared. This player is Ryu Hyunjun, and he thinks it is obvious why reporters are here. A reporter asks why Ryu Hyunjun has come to Korea. Ryu Hyunjun decides to speak plainly. The surrounding reporters are confused. He announces the launch of the U-18 Hockey World Cup next January. A reporter asks if the U-18 Hockey World Cup is different from the World Championship. Ryu Hyunjun explains he received a task from his team's head coach director James Paul. James Paul is a legendary coach who led a last-place team to 3 consecutive championships. He is the current coach of Ryu Hyunjun's team, the CJL Toronto Spears. In a flashback, the coach quotes Wayne Gretzky to Ryu Hyunjun. He explains that the International Ice Hockey Federation president proposed sending Ryu to Korea for 1 year. The coach initially refused, but then accepted, seeing it as a chance to develop Ryu further. He tells Ryu that he believes he will be a player who writes legends and gives him the task. Ryu questions the coach, asking why he must go to Korea when he could prove himself in the CJL. The coach says location does not matter for someone of his caliber and he wants something greater. Ryu thinks about what the coach wants. He remembers the golden generation who won the championship with him in Canada. The image of his former team shatters. His task is to build a team in Korea and crush them. Meanwhile, Jo Hyunjun is frustrated and wonders why no one is replying to him. He looks at his phone with urgency. He receives a message from the coach of Beacon High about his recent poor records. Jo Hyunjun laughs in disbelief, thinking it has to be a joke. He sits in a classroom and thinks he is screwed. He looks out the window and wonders why the weather is so nice. A classmate asks Hyunjun why he is wearing his uniform instead of his skating suit. Jo Hyunjun tells him to shut it. A pink-haired student named Bae Yeon asks if something prickly happened. Bae Yeon asks another student what is wrong with him. The student Lee Hyunwoo says Hyunjun has been sighing at his phone all day and jokes that he likes someone. Bae Yeon finds this funny, while Lee Hyunwoo says there is no other reason for him to be so spaced out. Hyunjun grabs Lee Hyunwoo's head and denies it while Hyunwoo apologizes for joking. Someone asks why he is so cranky and not at practice. He remembers his coach telling him to give up, but thinks he never will. He says he has been on the ice since he could walk and puts his foot on a desk. He declares he will succeed in a different sport to get revenge on the coach. His classmates are shocked as he asks if they thought he would give up after a few words. The 2 classmates burst out laughing. A curling stone slides across the floor and hits the wall. Jo Hyunjun is in a curling pose as a coach tells him to get out. He is now in a different suit and thinks it feels different from his skating suit. He stands awkwardly in a figure skating outfit as his classmates laugh. He thinks it is too tight in the crotch and notes it was a size too small. He glares at the smirking coach. Jo Hyunjun grabs both classmates by their collars. Jo Hyunjun decides to call it a day. A classmate notes they did not check the ice hockey team, but Hyunjun says he has no intention of doing ice hockey. The classmate asks if he has an allergy to hockey because of his reaction, and Hyunjun tells him to shut it. The sun sets over the school. A classmate calls to Jo Hyunjun, telling him it is time to go home. Hyunjun tells his classmates to go ahead, and one asks why. He stands up from his desk. He says he has one last thing to check. He is now on the ice rink in his skating gear. He skates hard around a turn. He moves quickly across the ice. From outside the rink, he is a blur of motion. A blonde-haired character watches from the stands. Hyunjun wonders why it does not work just because he got bigger and why things will not go his way. He thinks he is still the same person, but his body will not listen. He screams in frustration. His skate blade snaps. He looks down as he begins to fall. He tumbles onto the ice. He sits on the ice defeated. He thinks his body is not on his side anymore. He remembers he could not shake his attachment and wanted to skate one last time. He skates at full speed across the ice. He stops suddenly and looks ahead. His eyes widen in surprise. He sees another person on the ice and asks what that is. The person wears a bare head and he wonders why they are there. He questions why the person is covering their entire face. The masked skater moves forward. The bare mask faces him. The skater charges toward him. Jo Hyunjin is shocked by the sudden movement. He yells that they are going the wrong way and calls them a psycho. A collision is imminent. He cries out as they crash. Skates scrape across the ice. He is thrown off balance by the force. Ice sprays from the impact. The other skater is revealed to be the blonde-haired character, lying on the ice. Jo Hyunjin asks what psycho goes the wrong way. Jo Hyunjin looks up from the ice and asks what is going on. The blonde-haired character removes the large bare mask. His face is revealed. Later that night, Jo Hyunjin walks home. He stops and looks ahead with a questioning expression. The blonde-haired character from the rink stands in his path. Jo Hyunjin wonders who it is and why they are in front of his house. His eye narrows. He decides he does not care and thinks about making ramen at home. The blonde-haired character says his name Jo Hyunjin. Jo Hyunjin stops in shock and asks how he knows him. The character replies that of course he knows him. He recites Jo Hyunjin's history from his middle school Triple Crown to his declining records due to a growth spurt. Jo Hyunjin angrily asks who he is. He confronts him asking if some stranger is trying to pick a fight. They stare at each other intensely. Jo Hyunjin asks if he is the Ryu Hyunjin he knows. The blonde-haired character says, "Let us do it." Jo Hyunjin asks what he means. Ryu Hyunjin tells him to play ice hockey. Ryu Hyunjin promises to let him stand on the ice again, saying his stage is over here. Jo Hyunjin knew the boy named Ryu Hyunjin standing before him, but there was a clear difference between the Ryu Hyunjin people knew and the young boy in his memory who once called him amazing. In a flashback, Jo Hyunjin asks a young Ryu Hyunjin why he is there again. He remembers Ryu as a crybaby and asks why he does not go to the hockey rink. Young Ryu Hyunjin just laughs. Jo Hyunjin suggests Ryu should quit ice hockey and do short track like him. Ryu replies that ice hockey is still fun even though it is tough. Jo Hyunjin advised him to push through to the end if he decides on something. Ryu then announced he was moving tomorrow. He said he wanted to get better at ice hockey, which ended Jo Hyunjin's memories of him. The next day at lunchtime, Bae Yeon asks Jo Hyunjin what he is looking at. He shows him a picture of the ice hockey player Ryu Hyunjin on his phone. Jo Hyunjin looks annoyed. Bae Yeon tells him to just eat and asks why he is so cranky. Lee Hyunwoo tells Bae Yeon to follow the rules but is called out for not turning in his own phone. Another classmate asks if that player is really famous because he is showing up in his algorithm. Bae Yeon explains Ryu set dozens of records in Canada and was the first Korean in a CJL team. He says they might be witnessing a world-class player's debut as Jo Hyunjin wonders if all people named Hyunjin are genius skaters. Jo Hyunjin dismisses Ryu Hyunjin's talent, saying there are many good players in Canada. Bae Yeon adds that since it is a team sport, he probably got lucky and will join a good team in Korea. Another classmate says he overheard something in the teacher's office. He reveals Ryu Hyunjin is coming to their school as Ryu introduces himself to a class. The students are in disbelief that they will see a celebrity in person. Jo Hyunjin slams his desk and stands up. He stands in shock. Ryu Hyunjin looks toward him as Jo Hyunjin thinks he really came. On the school rooftop, someone wonders what is going on. Jo Hyunjin thinks about the crybaby from his childhood who disappeared and has now suddenly transferred to his school. Ryu Hyunjin asks Jo Hyunjin if his brother is doing well. From a distance, Bae Yeon and another classmate wonder what they are talking about. Ryu Hyunjin asks if he is completely quitting short track now. Jo Hyunjin says he quit and asks if Ryu came to their school just to mock him. He grabs Ryu Hyunjin's collar, asking if he came to see him become a screw-up. Ryu Hyunjin confirms this is right and tells him to play hockey. Jo Hyunjin punches him. With Ryu on the ground, Jo Hyunjin tells him to stop talking nonsense because he knows why he cannot do it. Jo Hyunjin walks away. Ryu Hyunjin lies on the rooftop floor. Ryu Hyunjin says that hurts. Lying on the ground, he tells someone to stop hesitating and come out. Bae Yeon and another classmate appear, asking Ryu if he is okay. Bae Yeon explains Jo Hyunjin is in a bad mood as Ryu questions if he is hurt. Ryu Hyunjin says he is the happiest he has ever been right now. Bae Yeon looks on in confusion. He grabs Ryu, asking if that is the face of a happy person. As his friends call Ryu weird, he asks if they know how he started playing ice hockey. The two classmates look at each other. Ryu Hyunjin reveals he started playing ice hockey because of Jo Hyunjin. A flashback shows Jo Hyunjin playing ice hockey before he started short track. At age 8, Jo Hyunjin celebrates on the ice. He scores his second goal of the game. Ryu narrates that back then he could not adapt to hockey. He was completely ready to quit the sport. Then a genius appeared in the game before him. Jo Hyunjin scores a third goal. He laughs on the ice. Ryu remembers thinking that for the first time hockey looked cool and brilliant. A young Ryu calls Jo Hyunjin amazing while Jo Hyunjin declares himself the boss of the ice. Ryu Hyunjin explains there is actually one person. He reveals this person is his brother. The classmates recall that Hyunjin's brother is a medical student named Hyungo Hyung who did not seem like an athlete. Ryu says that makes sense because his brother has not played sports since a certain incident. He explains that during a practice game, Jo Hyunjin crashed into his brother. They were known as the Genius Brothers. Ryu says his brother quit hockey because of him. One of the classmates looks at his phone. He calls someone named Hyungo Hyung. Hyungo Hyung stands on a balcony as the classmate asks why he is there. The classmate recalls that after that day he could not easily call his busy brother. Hyungo Hyung could never return to the ice and left hockey behind. Someone hands Hyungo a drink. A colleague asks Hyungo who he is talking to so much and he replies it is his little brother the skater. Hyungo clarifies his brother did short track but has quit and his colleague expresses concern. Hyungo says he is not really worried. He says it is okay because it is time for everything to return to where it belongs. Back on the rooftop, Ryu Hyunjin asks his classmates if they will help. He wants their help so that Jo Hyunjin can play ice hockey. Right after that, notices appeared all around the school. Recruitment notices for the ice hockey team were posted. Unlike the school's other top-tier clubs, the hockey club was dead last. But the arrival of the world-class player Ryu Hyunjin changed that. Because of one person's presence, it became the most talked-about club. A student tells the applicants the number of people selected is not set. He warns them that it will not be easy. He says they will have to beat him to be selected. Ryu Hyunjin announces he will start right away and wishes them luck. 4 days later, on the final day of testing, Jo Hyunjin stands outside the school. He stares at the recruitment notice for the Hyunsun High School ice hockey team. Ryu Hyunjin's words to play hockey echo in his mind. He runs toward the test site. He overhears students saying over 100 people applied, but almost everyone failed. Another student mentions about 40 people are still waiting as Jo Hyunjin thinks angrily about hockey. The clock shows it is Friday, May 22nd, the last day of the entrance exam. Jo Hyunjin stops and wonders if it looks like he can do it. 2 students watch him walk away asking what they should do. They recall how nothing they did all week worked, including text bombs and note terror. One of them holds up a phone saying this is the last resort. Later, Jo Hyunjin arrives home looking exhausted. A voice says he is back and Jo Hyunjin looks up in surprise. He sees a figure standing in the doorway. The person asks if he is just getting home now and Jo Hyunjin recognizes his Hyung. His brother stands before him leaning on a crutch. His brother looks at a bookshelf full of comics, saying it has been a while. He asks why Jo Hyunjin still reads comic books and Jo Hyunjin says his brother left them behind. Jo Hyunjin asks how his busy brother came all the way from Seoul. He asks why he just showed up and his brother replies that he is dying from how busy he is. Jo Hyunjin asks why he came and his brother asks if he needs a reason to come home. The 2 brothers sit across from each other in silence. Jo Hyunjin asks his brother if he can play hockey now. His brother questions what he is talking about. He says someone told him something interesting happened at school. Jo Hyunjin looks startled and asks what is interesting. He realizes who it was and calls Bae Yeon a bastard. His brother asks if this is not a good thing. Jo Hyunjin asks what he just said. His brother says he quit short track so the opportunity to return to hockey is here. Jo Hyunjin angrily asks what he is even saying. His brother says his excuse to run away has finally disappeared. He adds that Jo Hyunjin liked it and was good at it as Jo Hyunjin yells at his Hyung. Jo Hyunjin shouts that his brother liked it too. He asks how he can play hockey when he messed up his brother's leg. His brother asks if Jo Hyunjin knows what happens next. He says when something you liked becomes something you hate, it turns into loathing. He states he hates ice hockey terribly as a flashback shows Jo Hyunjin at age 8. The flashback shows his brother Jo Hyungo at age 14 on the ice. Jo Hyungo challenges his brother to come on. Jo Hyungo remembers the past. After the first period, people called them both geniuses. They believed both of the Jo brothers would become amazing players, but Jo Hyungo questioned if he was one. He wondered if he was really a genius. He thought that title only suited a monster like his brother. He had started years before him and questioned why he caught up. He wondered if he lacked effort, learning, or talent. He felt punished for daring to look to heights he was not given. He asks if that is so wrong. He just wanted to know why. He heard people say Hyunjin played better than him. He knew it was not a lack of effort. He realized back then that it was jealousy toward his brother. The flashback continues as the second period starts. A young Jo Hyunjin skates down the ice. He winds up to hit the puck. He comes face to face with his brother. Jo Hyunjin yells that he is coming for his Hyung. Jo Hyungo wonders if he will go to the left or right. Jo Hyungo decides that if skill does not work, he will use a foul to stop his brother. Jo Hyunjin falls to the ice with a nosebleed. His older brother rushes to his side, calling out to him. Jo Hyungo recalls that his leg bent outward and hurt, but only then could he smile because he could end his career as a genius who had an accident. Back in the present, Jo Hyungo reveals his leg was not broken by his brother's tackle. He admits the title of genius was a bit heavy for him as Jo Hyunjin listens in shock. He states that the leg injury is his own fault for committing a foul. He calls it his excuse for not having to play hockey and tells his brother not to steal it. Jo Hyunjin asks why he is only telling him this now. His brother admits he is a petty person who was jealous and left his younger brother with trauma. He says he is telling him now because the moment came when his brother could not beat him. He explains it took a while to settle his mind even after getting into medical school. But now he is a prestigious medical student who will not lose to his brother in studying. He tells Jo Hyunjin to stop running away and promises to fix anyone who gets hurt. Jo Hyunjin cries saying his brother has not even graduated yet. Jo Hyungo gets ready to leave saying he is playing hooky and has to get back. Jo Hyunjin jokes he will tell their mom and his brother asks if he is not afraid of death. The night sky is seen over the city. Jo Hyunjin lies in bed looking at his phone which reads 9 o'clock. He lets out a sigh. He rolls over thinking it is too late. At the ice rink, another applicant has failed the test. A voice notes it is weird to take a hockey test if you cannot skate. Ryu Hyunjin decides they should start wrapping up. He looks at the applications calling it a decent haul until someone yells for him to wait. He looks up and sees Jo Hyunjin at the rink entrance. Jo Hyunjin runs onto the ice toward him. He points at Ryu Hyunjin and says there is still one left. He declares there is still one person left. Ryu Hyunjin asks if it is not already over and Jo Hyunjin shouts what? Ryu Hyunjin says he was just kidding. He tells Jo Hyunjin to hurry and put on his gear. Jo Hyunjin replies that he does not think Ryu Hyunjin can beat him anyway. Now in full gear on the ice, he asks what the condition is to pass. Ryu Hyunjin states the condition is to get past him within 10 tries. He adds that physical contact is allowed of course. Jo Hyunjin stands in a dark void and asks where this is. He sees a figure in the distance. His eyes widen as he recognizes who it is. A figure resembling his brother stands before him. He asks if it is his Hyung. The figure of his brother charges forward. The figure throws a punch. Jo Hyunjin grits his teeth. The ground around him shatters. He stands surrounded by broken rock. His brother's eyes glow intensely. Jo Hyunjin jolts awake in bed. He realizes it was a dream. Back at the ice rink, Ryu Hyunjin introduces a player for the test. He announces it is the hockey team captain. A tall player in a red and white uniform appears. The player is Jin Gangyun, a third-year left defenseman. Jo Hyunjin panics thinking he is screwed because the test is a game. Another student asks if he will be okay since the senior looks strong. Jo Hyunjin declares he will dodge and pass with the power of a short-track athlete. A student points out something interesting and another asks what it is. He explains that until last year the ice hockey team had no applicants but now there are tons. Another student wonders if one person who is active abroad could change the atmosphere this much. A student with glasses asks if the others heard the news too. A different student replies that pretty much everyone gathered because they heard. The reason is that if the team makes it to nationals, they will cover full university tuition. With a guy ranked first in the world, they believe making nationals is a given, calling it free college. The students question if this is okay since people are not joining to work hard. Ryu Hyunjin stands before the crowd and says he needs to correct something before the test. He reveals the rumor about supporting university tuition is completely false. He adds that due to regulations, he can only participate starting from the winter national tournament. He declares that those who join the team must earn the national tournament ticket themselves. He tells anyone who does not want to take the test to leave now as students ask what is happening. Many applicants leave the gym. 2 remaining students note that everyone is leaving but it does not matter to them. Ryu Hyunjin states that there are 3 people left. The 2 students are confused asking about 3 people and see a third person. One of the students recognizes the other person. The third person is No Yujin, a first year who tells the other student to stop staring. The student exclaims it is the guy who could not skate at all as No Yujin tells him to get lost. A student wonders why No Yujin would play hockey if he cannot skate. He questions the idea that being short means adapting to skating quickly. Another student asks how the test will work with only 3 people left. Ryu Hyunjin muses that he expected most people to leave after he revealed the rumor was false. He thinks to himself that only the hopeless scraps are left. The students react to his thought. One of them yells asking what he means by scraps. Ryu Hyunjin asks if he is wrong, pointing out their flaws. The students are unable to refute his words about their lack of skill. Ryu Hyunjin says he will finish all 3 of them at once. He states the passing requirement is still 1 goal with no face-off. He also removes the time condition as a student questions how much he looks down on them. Ryu Hyunjin explains that he and the senior will also attack. The condition is for the applicants to score 1 goal while the defense team scores 5. A 2 versus 3 test practice game is announced. The defense team stands ready on the ice. Ryu Hyunjin is introduced as the right defenseman. Jin Gangyun is introduced as the left defenseman. The offense team prepares on the ice. Jo Hyunjin is introduced as the right forward. The final applicant is introduced as left forward Lee Hyunwoo. A goalie sits in front of the net. No Yujin declares that he will be the goalie. In a flashback, he admits he does not know how to skate at all. The other student asks why he is so confident when he cannot skate. No Yujin tells them to just score the goal because they need to pass too. A student notes they have 3 players against 2 defenders, giving them the advantage. A thought bubble states it will not be easy to score as the game starts. The offense team gets the first attack as the clock begins. The player thinks to himself to go. He skates down the ice with the puck. He prepares to take a shot. He shoots the puck toward the goal. The puck flies across the ice. Ryu Hyunjin's skate blocks the shot. Ryu Hyunjin looks on intently. He quickly gains control of the puck. The clock reads that 15 seconds have passed. Ryu Hyunjin shoots the puck from his side of the rink into the applicant's goal. The three applicants watch in disbelief. The puck slides past the goalie and into the net. A caption states the defense team scores 1 point. The scorer is identified as Ryu Hyunjin. The scoreboard displays the score as 1-0. Ryu Hyunjin says he guessed he expected too much. The applicants look on from the ice. Ryu Hyunjin announces there are 4 goals remaining. The offense team begins its second attack as Jo Hyunjin thinks he just needs to dodge. He believes he can dodge because his speed is good enough. He recalls his legs getting messed up and thinks about how to avoid colliding. A memory shows several people skating on the ice. In the memory, someone tells him he is afraid of someone else getting hurt in a collision. A diagram explains how turning can reduce impact and injury probability. He remembers a move that protects the puck by using one's back. He decides to use puck protection. He turns his back to Ryu Hyunjin to shield the puck. Ryu Hyunjin thinks that due to the height difference he cannot see anything. Jo Hyunjin skates past Ryu Hyunjin with the puck. Ryu Hyunjin looks on thinking the move was smart. Jin Gangyun faces the oncoming player thinking Hyunjin is too fast. Jo Hyunjin wonders if he is actually the one who is slow. Jin Gangyun's face is a blur of motion. A flashback introduces Lee Hyunwoo, a scrawny gamer who says exercise is not for him. He narrates that watching the others work hard gave him courage. A different flashback shows a student asking to be taught despite not having athletic ability. On the ice, Jin Gangyun thinks to himself. He skates forward to challenge for the puck. Jo Hyunjin thinks to himself that his dribbling is working. The narrative identifies his opponent as Jin Gangyun, the third-year ice hockey team captain. Jin Gangyun is known in the region as a master of zone defense. Before Ryu Hyunjin arrived, the Hyunsun High hockey team was set to be shut down. Jin Gangyun was skilled enough to get an offer from Beeksan P High, the strongest team in Korea, and yet he remains on the ice. He wonders how he lost a dribbling battle to a beginner. He thinks about the player who got past him. Jo Hyunjin skates forward with the puck. He gets ready to shoot. He shoots the puck. Jin Gangyun moves to intercept the puck. He thinks the player is no fluke and decides to use body checks. A skate cuts into the ice. 2 players are about to collide. The impact sends Lee Hyunwoo flying. Jin Gangyun looks down at the fallen player. He observes the player's slow skating but impressive puck control. Lee Hyunwoo had passed the puck before being hit. Jo Hyunjin tells the senior there is no time to space out. Jo Hyunjin skates with the puck towards the goal. He yells as he prepares to make his move. Jin Gangyun thinks it is all a bluff. He believes the applicant does not have the guts to collide. He dismisses the play as just a beginner's gimmicks. Jo Hyunjin shoots the puck towards No Yujin. The puck flies through the air. It lands in the back of the net for a goal. Ryu Hyunjin states that there are 3 goals remaining. A flashback begins. Narration explains a certain privilege is hidden within the word average. A younger No Yujin is measured at 153 cm tall, as others call him pathetic. The privilege is to mock someone while hiding in the majority. Taller students tell him he is too short. But No Yujin's narration says he knew what to do. He knew to grab the tallest person mocking him and change his eye level by putting him on the ground. After that, the cowards hiding in the majority would run away. The good thing about being short is that the other person is too embarrassed to admit being beaten up, so it gets processed as a mutual fight. The consequence is only a few hours of community service and a few days of suspension. Then one day he saw a goalie on the ice. He was a man who crushed tall guys with a body that looked even smaller than his own. He thinks about why he wants to play hockey. He concludes there is no grand reason. He just wanted to destroy like that man. He wants to destroy the tall people. He vows to start by shutting down the cocky blonde in front of him. Ryu Hyunjin gets the senior's attention. He asks the senior to exclusively mark the tall guy from now on. Ryu Hyunjin tells him to ignore the short one, and the senior asks for a reason. Ryu Hyunjin raises his hand towards the senior. The senior is silent for a moment. He then agrees to the plan. He resolves to mark the player with his full power from now on. The scoreboard shows the score is now 2-0. The third attack begins as the players face off. A narration states that a player must always face forward. This is the basic principle of defense to steal the puck. The player intends to crash into his target at maximum speed. He turns his hockey stick's blade backward along with his pride. The 2 players are about to collide. The impact sends the applicant flying. The fallen player groans on the ice. The senior declares he will destroy them with body checks. The applicant on the ice looks up. The score is now 3-0 as a voice says to brace yourself. The fourth attack starts with the puck in play. The 2 players skate near each other. The applicant thinks about how his move worked on the senior before. He thinks that if he is lucky it might work again. He attempts to skate past his opponent. The players move past each other in a blur. The narration calls this a reasonable lapse in judgment. He knew the technique that worked before was just a beginner's lucky shot. He did not recognize how much of a beginner he was. He thinks that even as a beginner, he can feel the difference in his opponent's defensive range. Lee Hyunwoo passes the puck to Jo Hyunjun. Jo Hyunjun receives the pass. He tries to use puck protection. Ryu Hyunjun easily skates around him. Ryu Hyunjun takes the puck. No Yujin declares he will not miss this time. He yells at the blonde head. Ryu Hyunjun prepares his shot. He shoots the puck past the goalie. The puck slides into the goal. No Yujin glares. He yells in frustration. The goalie looks down at his teammate. He calls his teammate a utility pole and tells him to do it properly. The senior says the goalie is also getting broken through. The goalie tells him to just crash into the player. No Yujin looks on. The scoreboard displays the score as 4-0. The fifth attack begins. No Yujin thinks that if they lose this time it is over. The players face off for the puck. The applicant notes they do not give him time to think and his legs are heavy. Skates cut across the ice. He resolves not to keep taking it. The senior player stares intently. The applicant thinks good as he gains control. A player skates away with the puck. The senior believes the game is over. Ryu Hyunjun's eye widens. The senior is surprised by his opponent. A player moves in to challenge him. Jin Gangyun realizes the player is already in front of him. He misses his check on the player. Ryu Hyunjun skates with the puck. The senior is surprised that Ryu is following him so quickly. Ryu Hyunjun prepares to shoot. No Yujin reaches out yelling no. The puck flies towards the goal. No Yujin thinks it is his fault. From the beginning, he dives for the puck. His eye is filled with resolve. It was not about winning with his own performance. He felt helpless that he could not do anything with his own abilities. He slams his hand on the ice. Jo Hyunjun says no, but the narration says still. No Yujin declares it is not over yet as he holds the puck. The hand he reached out with did not give up and his speed adaptation is complete. Ryu Hyunjun looks back at him. He finally created a miracle. No Yujin remains on the ice. The sixth attack begins, then the seventh attack, followed by the eighth attack, and then the ninth attack. No Yujin lets out a yell. The other players watch him, after another save. No Yujin asks the blondie how about that. Watching this, Jo Hyunjun suddenly realized something. A senior asks if he is okay as Jo Hyunjun thinks that only he was failing to prove himself in this game. He thinks that if he could not prove himself, this test would definitely end in failure. The average speed of an ice hockey player is 20-25 km/h. The average speed of a short track player is about 40-45 km/h. Jo Hyunjun's speed decreased with the skates change, but his thigh muscles remember. Based on his speed and technique, getting past them should not be a problem, but the shackles binding his legs tightened when opponents crashed into him. No Yujin calls him a utility pole. He yells at Jo Hyunjun to stop being scared. No Yujin asks Jo Hyunjun why he is so scared of growing tall. He yells at him to stop being a burden, saying they will all fail because of him. No Yujin says it is not a lack of ability and asks why he would fail just because he is scared. Jo Hyunjun says he has his circumstances. No Yujin yells that he does not care. Jo Hyunjun looks up and says one time. No Yujin says he cannot block after this one, telling him to solve it before then. He tells Jo Hyunjun to handle his own problems and skates away. Jo Hyunjun wonders what to do and how he can break through. Lee Hyunwoo gets his attention. Lee Hyunwoo says he has something to say. Jo Hyunjun listens. The 10th attack begins. A player skates with the puck. He approaches an opponent. The plan is to draw the body check. A diagram shows the strategy is to pass first, then break through to create an opening. The players move quickly on the ice. A player watches the play unfold. A pass is made across the ice. Jo Hyunjun grits his teeth. The opposing team suddenly switches from man-to-man to a zone defense. This new formation leaves no angle to break through. Ryu Hyunjun observes that they are getting desperate since their attempts are not working. He wonders what Jo Hyunjun will do now. Jo Hyunjun knows that without a breakthrough there can be no goal. He yells for Hyunwoo to take the puck and makes a pass. The puck slides across the ice. The plan is for Jo Hyunjun to break past the senior and get an immediate pass back. He skates towards his opponent. The senior player watches him approach. Jo Hyunjun thinks to himself that his speed is enough. He believes he can break through if he mixes in fakes. He attempts a fake out on the ice. The senior tells the rookie he looks like he is thinking a lot. He tells him to remember something for future games. The more desperate a player gets, the more obvious they become. Jo Hyunjun gets hit hard. The body check sends him flying. He tumbles across the ice as the senior skates away with the puck. Jo Hyunjun realizes the senior was going easy with the first body check. The senior looks down at him and says sorry. He tells Jo Hyunjun he will not get past him with that kind of play. The narration notes that player substitution is free in ice hockey. Players normally rotate every 1 to 2 minutes to rest. After over 10 minutes of play, the applicants have reached their limit. The senior thinks that for a beginner, he has held out for a while. He stands over Jo Hyunjun, who is still on the ice. Ryu Hyunjun tells him to stop the pointless struggle. Jo Hyunjun stands back up. Lee Hyunwoo asks Jo Hyunjun if he feels it too. Ryu Hyunjun says that everyone except him is doing their role in this test. Jo Hyunjun lunges forward, and see you in next chapters. Bye.